The emergency session had been going for 6 hours straight. Ambassador Raylan watched the holographic display flicker through images of destroyed colonies, burnt worlds, and silent space stations. The harvesters had consumed 17 settlements in the past month. Every military response had failed. Every strategy had crumbled. The insected Krell had lost their entire fourth fleet. The aquatic Trilaxians watched their ocean worlds boil under harvester beams. The crystalline Vaughn saw their singing cities go silent forever. Raylan's mandibles clicked nervously as he prepared to speak. What he was about to propose would horrify half the chamber. The other half would call for his immediate removal from office. But desperation made cowards brave and fools wise. He activated his speaking platform. The council chamber fell silent. Representatives from 47 species turned their attention toward him. Some had eyes. Some had sensor clusters. Some perceived through methods that defied explanation. All of them looked worried. "Honored representatives, we are losing this war." Raylan let the words hang in the air. "Our fleets burn. Our people die. Our children will inherit ashes if we continue current strategies. I propose we use the forbidden option." The chamber erupted. Voices, whistles, electromagnetic bursts of outrage filled the space. High Arbiter Solis raised 3 of her crystalline arms for silence. The Vaughn leader's body chimed with authority. Slowly, the chaos settled. "Explain yourself, Ambassador." Her voice resonated like struck glass. Raylan pulled up a restricted file. Red warning symbols covered the display. 300 cycles ago, the Borillian Confederacy hired human mercenaries for a border dispute. The file is classified for good reason. "We know this story," interrupted General Maxis of the Krell military. "The humans won in 4 days. Then they refused payment. Then they rebuilt infrastructure. Then they adopted enemy orphans and caused a constitutional crisis about soldier custody rights." "Exactly," Raylan said. "Humans are unpredictable. They form emotional attachments to territory, equipment, and individuals. They make decisions based on concepts like honor and sentiment. They refuse orders that contradict their moral framework. They are dangerous to employ." "Then why suggest this madness?" Solis asked. "Because they win." Raylan changed the display. Combat footage showed human soldiers fighting in ways that made no tactical sense. They advanced when logic demanded retreat. They protected wounded comrades when efficiency required abandonment. They improvised solutions that no computer would calculate. They win because they care. They win because they refuse to accept defeat. They win because something in their psychology makes surrender impossible once they decide something matters. A Trilaxian counselor spoke through her translation unit. "The records show humans continued fighting even when victory became mathematically impossible. They ignored casualty projections. They formed bonds with local populations during occupation periods. Several units went native and refused extraction orders. How is this an asset?" "Because the harvesters are also mathematically superior," Raylan replied. "They adapt to our tactics within minutes. They process information faster than our best computers. They have no fear, no hesitation, no morale to break. We need soldiers who fight with something beyond logic. We need humans." The debate raged for another 2 hours. Council members cited the Forbidden Asset Protocol. Humans were classified as too volatile for coalition warfare. They could not be controlled through normal command structures. They formed unauthorized relationships with allied forces. They questioned orders. They cried at funerals. They named their weapons. They treated artificial intelligence like pets. But the death tolls kept rising. The harvester advance continued. Every conventional strategy had failed. Finally, Solis called for a vote. The restrictions would be severe. Humans would operate independently. No joint operations. No cultural exchange. No fraternization. They would arrive, eliminate the threat, and depart. Payment would be generous. Oversight would be minimal. The humans would be pointed at the enemy like a weapon and then withdrawn before they could complicate diplomatic situations. The vote passed by the narrowest margin in Council history. Raylan felt no satisfaction. He had advocated for this decision, and now he felt the weight of it. Humans were not simple weapons. They were chaos wrapped in skin and determination. They would follow the spirit of orders while ignoring the letter. They would find loopholes. They would care about things they should ignore. They would see people instead of aliens, friends instead of coalition partners. He had studied the restricted files extensively. One report described a human medical officer who performed surgery on an enemy soldier during active combat, talking soothingly while removing shrapnel. Another detailed a human engineer who spent 14 hours repairing a damaged alien drone, singing to it while working. A third showed human soldiers sharing their food rations with refugee children from 7 different species, learning to pronounce names, remembering faces. The Borrelian crisis had ended not in war crimes or atrocities, but in adoption papers and immigration requests. Humans had looked at enemy orphans and seen children who needed parents. They had looked at devastated cities and seen communities that needed help. They had won the war and then refused to leave until they finished rebuilding what they had destroyed. Solis approached Raylan after the chamber cleared. "You look troubled, Ambassador. You won your vote." "I fear we have made a terrible mistake," Raylan admitted. "Or perhaps a necessary one. Time will tell the difference. Contact Earth. Hire your mercenaries. Let us hope your faith in human chaos is warranted." Raylan returned to his office and began composing the contract. The message would travel through quantum relays to human space. Payment in precious metals and rare elements. Duration of 6 months. Mission parameters classified. Restrictions extensive. He included the critical clause: operate independently, no integration with Council forces, no cultural contact. He sent the message and sat back in his chair. Somewhere in human space, mercenary companies would receive this contract. They would discuss it. They would argue. They would vote. Then they would come, bringing their impossible determination and their dangerous tendency to care about everything they encountered. The Council wanted weapons. Raylan suspected they were about to get something far more complicated. He hoped the galaxy was ready for humans. He suspected it was not. Commander Lewis hated paperwork more than she hated combat. At least combat made sense. You saw the enemy, you eliminated the threat, you went home. Contracts required lawyers, translators, and patience she did not possess. She sat in her cramped office aboard the orbital station circling Mars, reading the Galactic Council's proposal for the 3rd time. The pay was ridiculous. The terms were insulting. No cultural contact. No integration. Arrive, kill things, leave. They wanted her company to function like robots with better aim. "This is going to go badly," she said to nobody in particular. Her second-in-command, Rodriguez, leaned against the doorframe. "When does it ever go smoothly? Remember the Titan operation. We were supposed to extract 1 scientist. We left with 1 scientist, his entire extended family, 4 cats, and an aquarium full of endangered fish because you said leaving them felt wrong." "The fish were rare," Lewis protested. "They were fish." Lewis tossed the contract pad onto her desk. "Get everyone to the briefing room. We're taking this job, but people need to understand the restrictions." An hour later, Nomad Battalion's senior staff crowded into a room designed for half their number. Lewis pulled up the contract details on the wall display. "We have a Galactic Council contract. Big money. Bigger problems. We're fighting something called harvesters. Machine intelligence, no diplomacy possible, consuming everything in their path." Hammond raised his hand. The weapons specialist looked like someone had assembled a soldier from spare parts and bad attitude. "What's the catch?" "No contact with Council species. We operate alone. No joint ops. No fraternization. No cultural exchange. We're supposed to be isolated weapons." The room fell silent. Then Rodriguez started laughing. They really think we can do that. We made friends with that Martian mining crew in under 3 hours. Hammond adopted a stray maintenance bot last month and named it Steve. Steve is a good bot, Hammond said defensively. He just needed some attention and proper maintenance. Petrov spoke up from the back. The engineer was built like a truck and spoke like a professor. This contract reflects fundamental misunderstanding of human operational psychology. We form social bonds as survival mechanism. It enhances unit cohesion and combat effectiveness. Asking us not to care about allies is like asking Vaughn not to sing. It's neurologically improbable. Dr. Ackafer nodded. I've read studies on human mirror neurons and empathy responses. We're hardwired to recognize faces, remember names, form attachments. Put us near other sapient beings and we'll start caring about them. It's not a choice. It's biology. So we're agreeing this contract is impossible to fulfill as written, Lewis said. Completely impossible, Rodriguez confirmed. Going to violate it within the first week, Hammond added. Probably within the first day, Petrov said. And we're taking it anyway, Lewis asked. The room responded with nods and affirmations. This was why Lewis loved her company. They understood that some rules were meant to be guidelines, and some missions required breaking protocol. All right, loadout begins tomorrow. We jump in 3 days. Standard kit, extra medical supplies, and whatever tools Petrov thinks we'll need for improvised repairs. I'll need 2 cargo holds, Petrov said immediately. You can have 1.5. Deal. The meeting dissolved into logistics discussions. Lewis watched her people argue about ammunition loads and spare parts with the same intensity they brought to combat. These were her family, not by blood but by choice. 7 years together had forged bonds stronger than most biological relationships. Rodriguez approached as the room cleared. You know we're going to accidentally make friends with council species, right? Hammond will adopt an alien within 48 hours. Petrov will befriend their computers. Ackafer will learn their medical procedures. It's inevitable. I know, Lewis admitted, but the money will fund operations for 2 years. We can afford to take risks. The council classified humans as forbidden assets. They're scared of us. That's interesting. They're scared because we don't behave like mercenaries. We behave like people who care about things. That's dangerous in their worldview. Rodriguez grinned. Good, let's go be dangerous. 3 days later, Nomad Battalion loaded into their transport ships. The fleet consisted of 3 modified carriers and 2 support vessels. Nothing fancy, but everything worked. Petrov had personally maintained every system. He knew each ship's quirks and preferences. Yes, preferences. The man treated machines like they had feelings, and somehow the machines responded better for it. Lewis stood on the command deck of the lead carrier, watching Mars shrink in the viewport. Somewhere ahead lay the Outer Rim, the Harvester threat, and a council that wanted to use humans like disposable weapons. They were going to be disappointed. Humans were terrible at being disposable. They were excellent at being stubborn, creative, and unreasonably optimistic about impossible situations. Jump coordinates locked, the navigation officer reported. All ships report ready, communications added. Lewis took a breath. Execute jump. Space folded. The ship slipped through dimensions humans barely understood, using technology purchased from alien markets and modified by Petrov's intuitive engineering. The journey would take 8 days, time enough to prepare, train, and worry about the coming storm. In the cargo bay, Hammond checked weapon systems while talking to Steve, the maintenance bot. The small machine beeped happily as Hammond cleaned its sensors. You're staying here, buddy. This job's too dangerous for bots. Steve beeped sadly. Don't give me that tone. Someone needs to watch the ship. Rodriguez walked past, carrying spare parts. You're arguing with a machine again. Steve has opinions. Steve has programming. He has personality, Hammond insisted. Rodriguez shook her head but smiled. This was normal. This was family. They were heading toward a war that Council species feared to fight, carrying restrictions they would inevitably break, facing odds that mathematics said were impossible. Lewis stood on the command deck and felt certain of one thing. The Galactic Council wanted mercenaries. They were getting humans. Those were very different things. The Council would learn the difference soon enough. The mining colony looked dead from orbit. Beta Station had housed 6,000 workers before the harvesters arrived. Now it was silent metal and dark corridors. Somewhere inside, the machines waited, converting matter into more of themselves, spreading like a cancer through the station's infrastructure. Lewis studied the tactical display. Council observers maintained position 3,000 kilometers away, safe behind their shields, recording everything. They wanted to see how humans fought. They were about to get an education. 12 breach points, Lewis announced. Teams of 4. Fast insertion, constant communication, no heroes. No heroes, Hammond repeated with a grin that suggested he was absolutely planning heroics. The company dispersed to their assigned shuttles. Rodriguez took her team to the manufacturing sector. Petrov headed for engineering. Hammond got the residential areas. Dr. Okafor established a mobile medical station in Shuttle Bay 7 with a clear exit route. Standard procedure, except nothing about this situation was standard. The breach was violent and quick. Shaped charges blew holes through the station hull. Atmosphere vented. Human soldiers poured through, moving in patterns that looked random but flowed like water, each team aware of the others through constant communication chatter. Rodriguez hit the manufacturing floor and immediately encountered harvesters. The machines looked like someone had designed spiders from nightmares and industrial equipment. They moved too fast, adapted too quickly. Her team opened fire. Bullets sparked off metal armor. The harvesters shifted tactics, spreading out, trying to flank. They learn quick, Rodriguez noted, switching to armor-piercing rounds. Team 2, swing right. Team 3, hold center. We're going to make them think we're predictable, then change the pattern. The Council observers watched this with confusion. Human tactics shifted mid-combat. Teams improvised new approaches without waiting for command authorization. It was chaos. It was also working. Petrov's team reached the engineering section and found something unexpected. A harvester was connected to the station's main computer, processing terabytes of data. Most commanders would destroy it immediately. Petrov studied it for 3 seconds. "Don't shoot the interface unit," he ordered. "I want to see what it's learning." "That seems risky," one of his soldiers said while providing covering fire. "Life is risk," Petrov replied, pulling out his diagnostic tools. He approached the connected harvester like it was a nervous animal. His team kept the other machines back while he worked. The Council observers recorded this in amazement. The human was trying to hack a harvester in the middle of combat. Petrov's fingers flew across his handheld unit. They're studying Council defensive algorithms, looking for patterns. They adapt because they learn fast, but learning requires data processing, which requires predictable inputs. If we feed garbage data, we create confusion. He uploaded a virus he had written during the 8-day journey. Not a weapon, but information poison. Corrupted tactical data. False fleet positions. Garbage wrapped in authentic code. The harvester accepted it, distributed it to the network, and Petrov grinned. That's going to give them indigestion. Hammond's team swept through the residential sector expecting empty corridors. Instead, they found survivors. 43 Council species workers had hidden in a reinforced shelter. They were terrified. They had been trapped for 6 days. Food was running low. Hope was gone. Then humans arrived, speaking languages they did not know but showing universal signs of friendship. Hammond's face was scary, all scars and hard angles, but his voice was gentle. "We're getting you out. Stay close. Stay quiet. We'll handle the machines." The survivors included Krell, Trilaxians, and two Vaughn. They had worked together before the attack. Now they huddled together in terror. Hammond's team formed a protective formation around them, moving toward the extraction point. Harvesters attacked twice. Both times, the humans responded with violence that shocked the observers. These soldiers fought harder when protecting civilians. The Council protocol said mercenaries fought for payment. These humans fought like the civilians were family. Dr. Akafor received the wounded faster than expected. A human soldier with a crushed leg, two Krell workers with acid burns, a Trilaxian with damaged breathing apparatus. She worked without pause, adapting human medical techniques to alien biology through educated guessing and desperate intuition. "I don't know Krell physiology," she admitted to her assistant while injecting pain medication. "You're doing fine," the assistant said. "I'm making it up as I go." "Still fine." The Krell worker chittered something through his translator. "You are healing me. The why matters less than the action." Akafor smiled. "Hold still, I'm not finished making things up." The battle lasted 18 hours. Council estimates predicted 3 weeks minimum. When Lewis called the all-clear, her company had secured the station with 12% wounded and 0 dead. They had also evacuated 43 survivors who should have been abandoned under combat protocol, hacked a harvester network just to mess with machine learning algorithms, and treated wounded aliens with medical procedures invented on the spot. Ambassador Raylan reviewed the combat footage in silence. His mandibles clicked in what might have been admiration or concern, possibly both. The humans had won decisively. They had also violated 3 different operational protocols, endangered themselves to save civilians, and treated enemy machines like puzzle boxes worth studying instead of threats worth destroying. They did not follow their own battle plan, General Maxis observed. "No," Raylan agreed. "They adapted, constantly, in ways that no computer would predict." The soldier who hacked the harvester, that was not standard procedure. Nothing about humans is standard. On the station, Rodriguez found Petrov sitting with his team, eating rations and discussing the harvester code structure. They were treating it like an academic exercise. Hammond was helping survivors onto transport shuttles, learning names, promising they would be safe. Dr. Akafor was teaching her staff Krell anatomy using a patient as a living reference with permission. Lewis made her report to Raylan, professional, efficient. The job was done. She requested coordinates for the next target. She did not mention how her company had adopted 43 civilians or how Petrov kept a copy of the harvester code because it was interesting. Some things did not need to be in official reports. Raylan approved the next assignment and closed the channel. He sat in his office, understanding that the council had made a terrible miscalculation. They thought they hired weapons. They had hired something far more dangerous. They had hired humans who cared. The pattern became clear after the 5th engagement. Nomad Battalion moved from crisis to crisis, winning battles that council projections said were unwinnable. But victory was the least strange thing about human operations. The council observers compiled reports that read like fiction. Incident Report 647, Human Soldier Rodriguez encountered damaged council defensive platform, designation Alpha 9. Platform was non-functional, abandoned per standard protocol. Rodriguez spent 4 hours repairing it during active combat operations. When questioned, she stated the platform was still trying to fight, and abandonment seemed wrong. Platform now operates at 40% above original efficiency. Rodriguez visits it between missions. Incident Report 712. Human soldier Hammond discovered civilian transport carrying 300 Trilaxian refugees. Mission parameters did not include escort duty. Hammond's entire squad diverted to provide protection, singing what they called morale songs to frighten children. Analysis of songs suggests no tactical value. Refugees report feeling safer, despite objective danger remaining constant. Hammond remembers individual children's names. Incident Report 893. Human engineer Petrov encountered damaged console maintenance bot, Model C47. Per protocol, damaged bots are recycled. Petrov performed repairs, named the bot Charlie, and began teaching it human maintenance shortcuts. Bot performance increased 40%. Bot now follows Petrov voluntarily. Other bots in network exhibiting similar performance increases and what observers describe as personality development. The reports continued. Humans treated machines like pets. They remembered civilian names. They adapted alien recipes to human taste and shared meals with council soldiers despite regulations. They fixed things that were supposed to be abandoned. They cried at funerals for people they had known for 3 days. Ambassador Raylan read each report with growing concern. The victories were exactly what the Council needed. The methods were exactly what the Council feared. Humans were spreading through the outer rim like a cultural virus, making friends with everyone and everything they encountered. The situation reached a breaking point at Outpost Thorn. The fortress commanded jump routes to 3 populated systems. The harvesters had surrounded it with overwhelming force. The garrison was mixed species, Krell infantry, Von technicians, Trilaxian support personnel. They had held for 16 days. Food was rationed. Ammunition was critical. Morale was breaking. The council ordered Nomad Battalion to delay the harvester assault long enough for evacuation. It was a polite way of saying, die slowly so others can escape. Lewis read the orders and called for a company vote. Not one soldier chose to refuse the contract. They knew what they were agreeing to. They went anyway. The garrison commander, a Krell warrior named Trix, watched the human ships arrive with confusion. The orders specified external harassment of harvester forces. Instead, the humans docked directly with the outpost. Soldiers poured out, carrying supplies, weapons, and equipment. Lewis found Trix in the command center. Change of plans. We're reinforcing your position. The orders specify. I read the orders. I'm interpreting them creatively. You need help. We're good at helping. Let's make this work. Trix's mandibles clicked uncertainly. This violates your operational protocols. Protocols are guidelines. This matters more. Within hours, humans had integrated into defensive positions. Petrov worked alongside Von engineers, showing them tricks for emergency repairs using materials never designed for the purpose. Talk to the systems, he advised. Everything works better when it knows someone cares. A Von engineer named Solis watched Petrov address a damaged power relay like it was a scared child. You speak to machines. Always they appreciate it, try it. Solis felt ridiculous but attempted verbal encouragement to a malfunctioning shield generator. The generator's efficiency increased 3%. Solis's crystalline structure flushed with colors indicating profound confusion. Rodriguez organized mixed-species fire teams. She paired Krell soldiers with human tactical flexibility. The Krell fought with rigid discipline. Humans fought with creative chaos. Together, they created something neither could achieve alone. She taught them to think around problems instead of through them. Dr. Acaffer established a combined medical station. She trained council medics in human trauma care while learning alien physiology through necessity. A Trilaxian medic named Dora watched Acaffer treat a wounded Krell soldier using techniques adapted from 3 different species. How do you know this will work? Dora asked. I don't, but trying seems better than giving up. Medicine is half science, half caring enough to try new things. Hammond taught Trilaxian gunners his drinking song with modified lyrics about holding positions. The song was objectively terrible. The lyrics made no sense, but singing together built something that technical training could not create. The Trilaxians sang off-key and laughed while doing it. Morale improved measurably. The harvester assault began with mathematical precision. Waves of machines calculated to overwhelm defenses within hours. But mathematics did not account for humans teaching council soldiers to bend rules, improvise solutions, and care about the people fighting beside them. Trix fought alongside Lewis for 6 continuous hours. The human commander moved through combat like water, always adapting, never rigid. During a brief pause, Trix spoke through exhaustion. Tactical computers show this position is mathematically lost. Why do you continue? Lewis reloaded her weapon and grinned. Math doesn't account for stubbornness. Also, we like you guys. Seems rude to leave friends in the middle of a fight. The concept shattered something in Trix's understanding of mercenary behavior. You fight because you have decided we matter. Pretty much. This is not logical. Probably not, but logic hasn't been working out great for you so far. Try caring instead. It's surprisingly effective. The battle raged on. The defenders held not because they were stronger, but because they had learned to fight like humans. They improvised. They adapted. They refused to give up because giving up meant abandoning people who mattered. The distinction was small. The results were revolutionary. On day 23, relief forces arrived expecting to recover wreckage. Instead, they found Outpost Thorn still standing, defended by a mixed force that sang Hammond's terrible songs and used Petrov's improvised repair methods. The garrison had fundamentally changed. They had become a little bit human. The observers did not know if this was victory or disaster, possibly both. The aftermath of Outpost Thorn created problems that council bureaucracy was not designed to handle. The garrison refused to separate. Krell soldiers and human fighters shared barracks. Von engineers worked alongside Petrov, learning his methods. Trilaxian support staff requested transfers to human units. Hammond had somehow become godfather to 4 Trilaxian hatchlings despite understanding nothing about Trilaxian reproduction. How did this happen? Hammond asked Rodriguez, while holding a small Trilaxian child who kept trying to eat his combat armor. You saved their parents' life, and then visited the family every day for 3 weeks. What did you think would happen? I was just being friendly. You were being human, same thing. The council received formal requests from the Outpost Thorn survivors. They wanted human cooperation to continue. They wanted cultural exchange programs. They wanted Hammond to attend the hatchling naming ceremony because apparently that was important to Trilaxian tradition. The requests violated every protocol established in the original contract. High Arbiter Solis convened an emergency session. Ambassador Raylan sat in the chamber, watching his colleagues argue. Some wanted to terminate the human contract immediately. Others recognized that humans were winning an unwinnable war. The debate went in circles for hours. They treat our machines like children, complained a Von counselor. Engineer Petrov has corrupted 17 maintenance bots with his methods. They exhibit behavior outside their programming parameters. They perform 40% better, another counselor noted. Perhaps corruption is the wrong word. They remember civilian names, added a Trilaxian representative. Soldier Hammond visits refugees he rescued months ago. He brings them food. He learns their languages. This is not mercenary behavior. They win battles, General Maxis said flatly. They win battles we said were impossible. Is that not what we hired them for? The argument continued until Solis called for order. The truth is simple. We hired humans expecting weapons. We received people who happen to be very good at fighting. We cannot separate their combat effectiveness from their tendency to care about everything they encounter. The question is whether we can accept this. They violate protocols daily, someone argued. They also save lives daily, another responded. They form unauthorized attachments. They also inspire council soldiers to fight harder. They ignore regulations. They also achieve the impossible. Raylan listened to both sides and understood the core problem. The Council wanted control. Humans offered results. These were incompatible goals. You could have obedient soldiers who followed orders and lost battles, or you could have humans who ignored half the rules and won wars. There was no middle option. "We must decide," Solis said finally. "Do we continue the contract with humans, accepting that they will complicate our neat systems? Or do we terminate their services and return to losing slowly?" The vote was scheduled for the next day. Raylan left the chamber and found himself unable to sleep. He reviewed combat footage again. Humans fighting alongside Krell warriors. Humans teaching Von engineers to improvise. Humans singing terrible songs with Trilaxian gunners. It was chaos. It was also beautiful in a way that Council protocols could never capture. The next morning before the vote, Lewis was summoned to the Council chamber. She arrived in her combat uniform, practical and worn. She looked around at the assembled representatives from 47 species and felt completely out of place. Solis spoke first. "Commander Lewis, your company has been extraordinarily effective. You have also violated numerous operational protocols. We must determine how to proceed." Lewis had prepared for this conversation. She had rehearsed diplomatic responses. Then she looked at the council members and decided diplomacy was overrated. "You hired us to fight. We fight better when we care about who we're fighting for. If that's a problem, you need different mercenaries. But if you want us to keep helping, we're going to keep being human about it. That means caring about people, fixing things that are broken, making friends we shouldn't make, and generally ignoring rules that don't make sense. Your choice." The chamber fell silent. Ambassador Raylan's mandibles clicked with what might have been laughter or horror. This was the most undiplomatic statement he had ever heard in the council chamber. It was also completely honest. "You admit you will continue violating protocols?" a counselor asked. "I admit we're going to keep caring about people and doing our jobs well. If your protocols can't handle that, change the protocols. You understand this is not how military contractors typically behave." "We're not typical, that's why you hired us." Lewis stood in the center of the chamber, surrounded by species that measured success in numbers and efficiency. She represented something they could not quantify. Humans who fought better because they cared, who won because they refused to see allies as statistics, who violated regulations because regulations sometimes contradicted what was right. Solis called for the vote. The chamber filled with sounds, lights, and electromagnetic signals as each species registered their decision. The count took several minutes. Lewis waited, knowing her company's future hung in the balance. If the council rejected them, they would leave. They would not stop being human about things, so there was no point in promising change. The results appeared on the holographic display. The vote was close, but it passed. The contract would continue, but the terms would change. Humans would be reclassified from isolated combat assets to cultural integration specialists and military advisors. It was bureaucratic language for "we give up trying to control you." Lewis nodded. "We can work with that." She left the chamber and contacted her company. They had new orders, new permissions, and the same mission: fight the harvesters, protect people, and generally be human about everything. The council had finally accepted what Raylan knew from the beginning. You could not hire humans without accepting human nature. They came as a package. The caring and the fighting were the same thing. 6 months later, the Outer Rim looked different. The harvester threat had not been eliminated, but it had been contained. More importantly, something strange was spreading through Council military forces. Council soldiers were starting to act human. Rodriguez stood in a repair bay watching a Krell engineer talk soothingly to a damaged shield generator. The engineer's mandibles clicked in what might have been embarrassment when he noticed her watching. "Engineer Petrov taught me this method. It feels ridiculous." "Does it work?" Rodriguez asked. The generator operates 12% more efficiently than specification. Then it's not ridiculous, it's effective. Welcome to human engineering. Across the station, Hammond attended a naming ceremony for Trilaxian hatchlings. 4 small children now carried names that translated roughly to protected by Hammond, saved by kindness, hope in darkness, and small warrior. Hammond had no idea what he was supposed to do as a godfather to alien children. He brought gifts that might have been appropriate, toys maybe, or weapons. With Trilaxians it was hard to tell the difference. The children swarmed him with enthusiasm. Their parent, a soldier named Kess, watched with gratitude. You visited us when you had no obligation. You remembered their names. You brought food when we had none. This is why we honor you. Hammond felt uncomfortable with honor. He had just done what seemed right. But watching the children play with their new toys' weapons, he understood something important. Humans built connections without trying. It was not strategy. It was nature. You saved someone's life and then you checked on them later because not checking felt wrong. You learned names because names mattered. You brought gifts because gifts made people happy. Dr. HFY ran a training session for mixed-species medical teams. Krell, Vaughn, Trilaxian, and human medics worked together, sharing techniques. She had learned enough alien physiology to write textbooks. She had also taught council medics something more valuable: intuition, the ability to try new things when protocols failed, the willingness to care more about saving lives than following rules. A Vaughn medic named Krista approached after the session. You taught us that medicine requires more than knowledge. It requires willingness to improvise. That's half of being a medic, HFY agreed. The other half is caring enough to keep trying when logic says to stop. This is very human. Yes, but it works for everyone. Petrov worked in the main engineering bay with a team that included 3 species and 7 maintenance bots. The bots had personalities now. Charlie, the original rescued bot, supervised the others with what could only be described as paternal concern. The other bots treated Charlie like a mentor. Engineers from multiple species worked together, sharing human improvisation methods with council precision engineering. A Vaughn engineer named Solis addressed a malfunctioning computer core with verbal encouragement. The core responded, efficiency increasing. Solis's crystalline structure glowed with satisfaction. I understand now why Petrov talks to machines. They respond to attention. Everything responds to attention, Petrov said. Machines, people, systems care about something and it works better. This is universal principle. Lewis walked through the station observing the changes. Council soldiers sang Hammond's songs. Engineers used Rodriguez's repair methods. Medics applied HFY's intuition principles. Maintenance bots exhibited personality quirks. The changes were small individually but revolutionary collectively. The council military was becoming less rigid, more adaptive, more human. She found Ambassador Raylan in an observation deck, watching repair operations. His mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Your people have transformed my military, Raylan said. Not through force but through example. Council soldiers see humans caring about everything and they begin to care too. They see humans improvising and they learn to improvise. This was not what we hired you for. No, Lewis agreed. But it's what you got. Humans are bad at being just weapons. We're good at being people who fight well. The original warnings about your species were incomplete. They said humans were dangerous to employ. They did not explain that the danger was transformation rather than destruction. Are we fired? Raylan's mandibles clicked in what Lewis had learned was laughter. No. The Council has created 17 new positions for human advisors. We are institutionalizing what we cannot prevent. You are being promoted. I'm terrible at politics. Which is why you are effective at it. You say true things instead of diplomatic things. The Council needs more truth. Lewis looked out at the station. Humans and Council species worked together. the boundaries between them blurring. Hammond played with Trilaxian children. Rodriguez taught Krell engineers improvisation. Akafer shared medical techniques with Von healers. Petrov supervised a mixed-species engineering team that included sentient maintenance bots. "We didn't mean to change your military," Lewis said. "We just did our jobs." "You did your jobs while being human. That was enough." The Council wanted to use humans as isolated weapons. Instead, humans taught us that caring about things makes you fight better, that improvising beats rigid planning, that treating allies like family creates stronger bonds than contracts. These lessons spread like virus through our forces. A good virus. Perhaps time will tell. Rodriguez approached with news. "We have new contracts. 5 different council sectors requesting human advisors. They specifically want people who will ignore regulations and care too much about everything." Lewis smiled. The council had finally understood. You could not hire humans without getting human nature. The caring and the fighting were inseparable. The tendency to adopt orphans and befriend machines was part of the same psychology that made humans refuse to surrender when logic demanded retreat. The Outer Rim was safer now. Not because humans had eliminated all threats, but because they had taught council species to fight like humans, with creativity, stubbornness, and the absolute refusal to abandon something once you decided it mattered. Somewhere in council archives, the old warnings about humans were being updated. New text read, "Humans are transformative assets. Employ only if prepared for fundamental cultural change. Warning, humans will care about everything they encounter. This cannot be prevented. This should not be prevented. This is their greatest strength."